All right, y'all. What's going on? It's Combo Breaker 99 back with another one, y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe over here, talking all box and everything. All right, y'all. So I didn't do my prediction over here, but I did it on my other channel, the Jab Effect, with my partner Boxing P. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Jab Effect. Getting back into the mix over there. But yeah, I went with Bud Crawford by decision for all the reasons that you saw Saturday night. All right. I know I heard a lot of people say that Canelo was going to knock Bud out. At most, I gave Canelo a flash knockdown chance, and that was just if Bud got drawn into like a punching match or if he really wanted to show out and just go toe to toe for just a little bit. But overall, like, knockout was not in the cards for me from Canelo. And if a knockout wasn't in the cards, a decision was definitely not in the cards because Canelo Alvarez, let's be real, look, he's a good, talented fighter. But Bud, I said this time and time again about Bud Crawford, man. He's a special fighter with special gifts. He's a guy that you put in the category with like a Roy Jones, those God given gifts different in a different fashion, but he has those God given gifts and natural abilities. Andre Ward, um, Floyd Mayweather, of course, right? Terrence Crawford, ever since I've been watching him from day one, this guy, he's always had a game plan just because of the way he appreciates the fight game and how he grows. Like it's that IQ, but it's also that scary competitive nature about him. When he calls a guy out and he's preparing for a fight, you best believe that 100% Terrence Crawford is coming. I know a lot of the times fighters are not 100% like they say, but Crawford, he's going to be close to 100% whenever he's coming to perform. So when I heard that this fight was signed, I was like, okay, I'm going to go with Bud by decision here because going back to Canelo Alvarez, Canelo, he's got some good basic fundamentals. He's learned on the job. But when you go in there with a guy that has, and I mean, he just has everything in the tool belt, almost like Floyd Mayweather and Terrence Crawford, what are you going to do? Really, what are you going to do? Because the basic weapons that Canelo Alvarez has got him through is, his power, his body attack, his left hook, and his upper body movement. Some of these other boxers, they get so intimidated by the head movement that they don't have another game plan. They just back straight out and let him beat him up. So when you're looking at a guy like Canelo Alvarez and him doing that to this certain level of fighters, I was like, all right, that we can see. But when you're dealing with guys that have good footwork, good solid jab, and know how to use their reach, and they'll hit you back to get their respect. Those guys give Canelo trouble. They give Canelo trouble all day long. So 100%, I went with Canelo. I went with Terrence Crawford, same as I did with Bivol. I was like, I know Dimitri Bivol, he's gonna beat Canelo. He might beat him just this side of a stoppage. And I mean the power punching of Bud, it was almost similar. So it was almost similar to like Bivol. It was just like this whipping type of power that was coming at these different angles, and it was making Canelo reset. It was making Canelo get frustrated, and actually making Canelo anticipate it. Where he was like, "All right, what's this going to feel like? All right, maybe I can't stay in here too long." You could see at times like Canelo was a little apprehensive about getting in there after like landing one shot. He would back out. In the past, you've seen him throw like 2, 3, 4 punch combinations when he's on the inside, like against Caleb Smith or so on. But he didn't want to risk that against Bud, even though everybody was saying Bud is a smaller man here. And of course, like I said, Bud is a smaller man by moving up. But something told me, Bud, he's going to have lead in them hands. Them punches are going to be too much. And another thing, too, Canelo Alvarez, when was the last time he fought a southpaw? And we're talking about a southpaw that uses everything. I'm talking about the jab, the right hook, straight left hand, everything. That's something that Canelo hasn't faced in a while. And there was a couple of shots too. I went back and looked at on the replay. Canelo just didn't know how to deal with the footwork either. There was a couple of times he stepped right in on the inside of the lead foot of Crawford and would get cracked with that straight left hand. So Canelo Alvarez, he was just outgunned in so many ways, but everybody was just kind of blinded by the popularity. Like I said, the most chance he had was like if he had a good body attack, but he was just too flat-footed to catch up. And he doesn't really have a good solid jab. Like Canelo's abandoned his jab ever since I don't know when now at this point, 160. He's never really been like this jabber. So if you don't have a jab and you can't counter another fighter's jab with your own jab, you done lost the fight. If you don't have footwork or a jab against a jabber with slick footwork, you're not going to match him. You're not going to match him. So with that being said, just looking back at the fight here, the first half of the fight, I definitely thought, Canelo, he was already showing signs of frustration. I gave Canelo at most the first round. That was just based off activity and like a couple of right hands he landed. But as soon as Bud got into a groove, he was just like whipping him, with these snappy left hands. Every time Canelo would step in, he would follow up with like 1, 2, 3s, and then he would kind of pity pat and then throw those good shots upstairs with, like that straight left hand through the guard. He was really cracking Canelo. Like Canelo's timing was off in this one. Like you seen Canelo in the past duck some Danny Jacobs shots or Golovkin shots, with the head movement. He's all slick upper body movement like Floyd, but in this fight here, there was really no way he could do that, because when he would step in and hit Crawford to the body, which is where he was really focusing in this fight, Crawford would go upstairs with the straight left hand and crack him. And I think every time he felt that power, it would put him in respect mode. And that's the thing. Like Crawford, he wasn't like punching with full on punching power. Had he went in there with full punching power, he might have stopped Canelo, but he was just doing enough to get the respect. And that's one of the things you need to be able to do when you're moving up to fight heavier boxers. Like if you can't knock him out, you got to have respect on your shots. And he had plenty of that. So the first half, man, it was like 5-1. I'd say Canelo tried to turn it up in round 5 when they did a little exchange. They both went at it, landed toe-to-toe shots. But, overall, I thought that Bud, he got the better in that exchange. He got the better in that exchange for real. Actually, I'm looking back now. I think there might have been one round I could slip in there for Canelo, just whenever Bud kind of took his foot off the gas. But in the second half of the fight, like 7 through 12, Bud was just doing what he wanted. He was sticking that jab in Canelo's face and then coming back with the straight left hand and just pivoting out. And every now and then, like when he would get close to the ropes, Canelo looked like he wanted to let something go, but he was kind of fearful of what was coming back. So by the time he would step in, Bud would step out to his right, go right back to the center and reset. All the while, he's smiling in this fight. He's whipping him with these long punches, and Canelo's just sitting here taking these shots. And the thing is, like, these shots are hurting. They're stinging Canelo. They are shocking him a little bit because they make him kind of just follow him around. Like he's not cutting the boxing ring off, staying in there. Like even the shots that are hitting his guard or hitting him, on the glove, and they're kind of the impact of kind of like shocking him. That's why you can see the little redness on Canelo's face. And I think Canelo got a little frustrated in that, I think it was that 9th round or 5th round when he kind of jumped in with that headbutt and tried to open up a cut on Crawford. I think he was a little frustrated there, So just looking out through the second half of the fight, man, like Bud kept turning it up here and there. Then he would, go on the back foot, create some space, invite Canelo in, hit him with another 1, 2, or 3, then pity pat a little bit, then boom, hit him with the hard impact shots and go back on the outside. I say by round 10, man, like Canelo was looking really frustrated. Every time he would get hit with that straight left hand, he'd do that little walk off, like, dang, it was almost like he was quitting mentally. Physically, he was there, but mentally he kind of quit, because I think if he really wanted to get it, he would have went in there and started banging Bud up on the arms and stomach or trying to tie him up more. But speaking of the tie up, I think he felt Bud's strength as well. I think he felt Bud's strength because there was a couple of times, when they did lock up, Crawford would kind of reverse him and put him on the ring. Put him on the ropes. And I believe at one point he kind of had Canelo up on one leg too, so he did feel that strength a little bit. Now, Bud, I think they underestimated it. But yeah, overall, man, like going into 11 and 12, Canelo Alvarez, he just looked defeated at this point. Every now and then he's still landing his one shot, one right hand, left hook here and there. But Bud is just, closing these rounds out nicely. Even at one point they went for an exchange again, Bud, he got the better of it. I think he buckled Canelo in round 10, several times. Several times he kind of buckled him, So Canelo wasn't expecting it to be like that. He really wasn't expecting it to be like that. This ain't like a puncher. This is a boxer that knows how to punch, So If it's a boxer that you're dealing with that knows how to punch, these shots are going to be coming at angles that you aren't used to seeing, and that means they're going to hurt more. All right. So yeah, that's what I saw, man. I saw Bud put on a masterclass. I saw Canelo kind of start to fade out in like round 8 and 9, but by 10 and 11 and 12, he just looked like he was done. He stopped trying. He kept walking away to that little sidewalk when he get hit and kind of shake his head. It was almost like he wanted to make an excuse, but you can't say Bud is running because Bud is right in front of you. Bud is just turning angles. You just can't figure the style out, right? So with that being said, I had it 10-2. I had it 10-2 at most 9-3. Like I said, I gave Canelo round 1. I think I gave him round 5. I think that's the one where they had the little exchange. I gave him that round. And I think I gave him like one round down the stretch, maybe like round 9 or 10, and that was it. I think it was one of those rounds. But overall, I think, Canelo Alvarez, he was just completely outgunned. His basic skills that got him through fights with guys like Caleb Plant, Edward Berlanga, and so on. It showed that he depended on those skills too much, right? Those basic tools. Like he couldn't go into the box like Crawford was prepared to do. Crawford gave him a little bit of everything in this fight. Boxed with him, punched with him, boxed from a range, inside fighting. There was a couple rounds where they were on the inside and Bud was ripping him with uppercuts, so Bud took him to school. Bud Crawford took him to school. And I think, he knew, and all the ones that really know boxing, they knew that Bud was going to do this. And like I said, I knew this too, because we talk about Canelo like he's this huge, huge guy, like somebody coming down from light heavyweight. But remember, Canelo started at 154. He's not like this big guy, right? He's a blown up super middleweight or blown up light heavyweight, and when you look at the height, when like this huge guy, it's not like Bud was facing Beterbiev or Benavidez or Bivol or one of those guys, right? He's facing a guy that was at 154 and just moved up before he did. So when you look at it, Bud was in no way outgunned. He was in no way outgunned. So yeah, good fight, good performance. 3-time undisputed champion for Terrence Bud Crawford. Everything, that he needed to show to really stamp himself as, one of the best of this generation was in there. And, if I was teaching anybody to box, I would definitely show tapes of Bud Crawford. So yeah, let me know in the comment section what y'all thought of the fight, man. I think actually both of these guys, they could actually ride off in the sunset from here. I'd hate to see Bud mess up his career, 3-time undisputed. What else can you do? Except let your pride get in the way and get knocked down, right? So to me, he could be done. Don't even rematch Canelo. Canelo Alvarez, he could entertain a fight with Benavidez just to go out on a high note. I don't know about high note. He might not. That's not a guaranteed win, right? There's something out there for Canelo. I'd hate to see him go out on just an L, though. But yeah, we'll talk some more later, guys. Just about the styles here and, why everybody underestimated Bud. But the real look at Canelo, like I said, I was a Canelo fan hardcore until he got popped. But still, like, I was studying him all the way up until this point, and there was just nothing that I saw he could do here. His kryptonite came in many forms in the past, and all of these guys in the past, it all came into one as Bud. The Floyd style, the Austin Trout style, Erislandy Lara style. Everything kind of came together in this fight, even the Bivol style, that rapid fire combination punching that was knocking him back. Everything came into this fight. So, yeah, good performance. Shout out to Terrence Bud Crawford, best of this generation, #1 pound for pound. What do y'all think, guys, in the comment section? Hit that like button and subscribe. All boxing everything. I'm out. Peace.